Welcome to the Writer Reads Short Stories. This is What Happens on Axis 58, Part 1. Mack, you son of a... I paused, remembering where I was, and that I couldn't cuss him out like I usually did. Spider's intestinal void. And I wanted to cuss him out bad. Spider's intestinal void just didn't cut it. Honestly, when I got back on board the ship, he and I were going to have words. With our fists. That dirty... His voice rang through my implant, cutting me off. Cutter, you need to focus. No really? You don't say. Behind me, someone giggled, and I wanted to glare at whichever mind-reading smart Alec thought this was in any way funny. But I was just a little busy. Finding the ruins near the campsite chosen for survival training had been one thing. Banning a dozen hyper-curious teens, another. Having the "we are 16, you knows" actually do as they were told? Yeah, forget it. I'd noticed they'd snuck out of camp in full height gear and chased right after them, but I hadn't caught up with them until they'd entered the ruins, crossed the first corridor, and were almost at the second, 100 meters in. By the time we'd backtracked, the outer doors were closed and locked, and we'd realized we'd wandered into a trap. I'd turned them right back around and taken them deeper, and I realized we were in more trouble than I'd ever managed to get into on my own, because these weren't ruins. They were a starship, an old one, but of human origin. So I'd logicked us up an emergency airlock, only to find it was locked down tight, and hacking it was more complex than we had time for. Mac, this thing launches and you need to come get me. This time his response came through loud and clear on the handheld, right where the youngsters could hear it. Get you, Cutter? No dice. I'd have to go after the kids first. Hey! And while I agreed with the sentiment, it wasn't because he'd called me a kid. It was because he'd just reminded me that the damn Dashed contract came first. Well, of course it did. I sighed. Go on the excursion, he'd said. Keep an eye on the kids, he'd said. It'll be easy. That, and we were on contract, and they'd wanted extra security along in case something came up that the civilians couldn't handle. Mac hadn't really been asking, and I hadn't really had the option of saying no. At least this time Odyssey weren't involved. Right now, though? Right now, I wished Mac had at least let them know what we were up to. Axis 58 was close to the Kukavoran system. Who was to say the Arak hadn't already bounced an expeditionary force right through here? Ease up, Cutter. We've had no reports to indicate that. No? And I finally got through the first layer of code. Well, crap. Mac, we got a problem. Now tell me something I don't know. I need tens. Really? Tens couldn't believe I'd asked, and then he saw why. Well, sucks to be you, doesn't it? Man didn't have to sound so happy about it. Seriously? This is one sweet setup, and you need to get the kids out of there. Oh, for pity's sake, couldn't he get even half a clue? Of course I needed to get the kids out of here, but I'd been hoping to do that without any of them noticing we were so deeply in the dark stuff that getting out wasn't guaranteed. The reason I hadn't been swearing in my head was that some of them were Psi and hadn't been house-trained yet, which meant they forgot they weren't supposed to go peeking into other folks' thoughts, and sometimes they remembered and completely ignored it anyway. Which meant I now had 6 very curious minds, all poking their way into my skull, trying to see exactly what it was I didn't want them to know. Well, thank you very much. The rash of giggling that broke out over that one just confirmed the problem. Sorry, Cutter, Ten said, and I sensed him looking at the mass of spiky black code lines tangled around the more comprehensible silver-blue ones. I'll take it from here. You do what you can to get them somewhere safe. I need out, I said, just as I registered the vibrating rumble shuddering through the floor of our supposedly ancient ruins. No can do, kiddo. Looks like you guys are stuck for the ride. Tens, I started, and clamped down tight on that thought. No way did I want the kids picking up exactly how much trouble we were in. Given what had taken over this ship before disguising it as a set of ruins on a very remote world, well, crap. I pushed the thought away. No substitute was going to cut it. No polite substitute, anyway. I sighed a second time and leant my head against the airlock wall. Get yourself out of there, Cutter. The ship we've got a chance of rescuing you from. There's not much I can do if you get yourselves spat out into space. Trust Mack to come up with something even I couldn't ignore, and falling out an airlock was an old nightmare of mine, as he very well knew. Come on, guys. Looks like your training just got real. I turned and headed back into the vine-bedecked corridor. Where to? Whose ship? And are we alone in here? Came into my mind in quick succession, and I recognized the three most curious of my psychic charges. For a long moment I thought about telling them nothing, or even telling them a lie. A good, safe lie. Don't you dare. Please don't. And don't make me find it for myself were all the responses I needed in order to know how mad a choice that might be. We grad this year came from Miss Find It For Myself, and I was grateful to hear her voice, with my ears instead of inside my head. Thank you, I told her. That was nicely done. It was good to see her smile. Not so good to see the walls shudder as their disguise dropped away. To be honest, I'd have been better off not knowing the kids knew all the words I'd been trying not to say. Enough, I said, and they stopped, regarding me with wide eyes. But this is an Arak ship. I remembered the coding and shook my head. Not in all their little eight-legged dreams. They stole this ship, and we have the best IT guy I know working on hacking it 10 ways to Stardust, okay? I saw some of the panic fade, surprised that Tens didn't say a word. He was still there. I could feel him in my head. I could also feel that he was very, very busy and missing Askavor's deft skill at Arak coding and team hacking. Time to focus these guys on something else. Who knows what we're supposed to do next? That's pretty much your job, miss. Smart Alec. Hey, and keep yourself out of my head. This got me nothing, so I glared at the offender and looked at the others. Where's the safest place on a ship? Any ship. In the pods? In our cabins? Stupid, we don't have any of those. Like you know any better. Come on, guys, I thought. I know you've gone over this. For a backwater world, you've been given some of the best spacer training I've seen. And that's when they got it. Whether they were still looking into my head or had worked it out for themselves, I didn't care. But they found the right answer. On the bridge and in the control center echoed as one. So I pushed them again. And how do we find that? That's stupid, miss. We don't even know what kind of ship we're on. Yeah. It's not Arak, I told them, but the expression on their faces said they thought otherwise. Seeing the faint lines of webbing spread over both walls and ceiling, I couldn't blame them, so I gave them a hint. I've seen the code, I said, and caught the interested prod of one of the quiet ones. Piet. This time I didn't tell him to keep his mental pause to himself. This time I let him take a look at my memory of what the code looked like. Maybe. But he shook his head. Sorry, miss, it's not Galbas. I already knew that. Grab two others and work it out, I told him. You crack it, I'll let you try and fly this crate. Seconds later, he was out of my implant and grabbing the class's two most promising programmers. They weren't Psi, but that didn't stop them from getting along. Dry grass and a match. I caught his whispered excitement as they went. Hey, want to fly a starship? Oh, stars, what had I done? I stopped them just before they opened the next door we came across. What? Do you know what's behind the door? Aren't we alone on this ship? You want to find out the hard way? I asked, and all faces looked at me. They weren't very friendly looks either. Some teacher you are. Well, that was something I wasn't going to let pass. Yeah? And who were the idiots who decided it was a good idea to sneak out of camp to explore a set of ruins they'd been told to stay away from? I let that sink in for a heartbeat before adding, and I'm not your teacher. That earned me a sneer from more than one corner, and I curled my lip in response. Honestly, someone needed a good paddling. You and whose army? And I was surprised to find the attitude coming from little Miss Don't Make Me Find It. Probably shouldn't have been. I cocked an eyebrow at her.